Hello and welcome back to the Marketing Chat Room. I'm Kayla here with Rayner today. He is joining us from Mensor, which is a division of WICA. Did I say that correctly?
You did.
Awesome. And Aaron and I met, it must have been a couple years ago now, at an AMA convention in Chicago.
Nationals, I believe it was.
Yeah, it was. So we are both on our respective locations, American Marketing Association chapter boards, and that is our initial connection. And then we've had some fun conversations about marketing since. So I'm really excited to have you here on the show today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining. And would you please kick us off by giving a quick intro of just about yourself, a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are, and what you do now?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So like you mentioned earlier, I'm with Mensur, which is a subsidiary of the WICA Group. They're a larger international company located in Germany. And I'm the director of marketing at Mensur, where I lead strategic initiatives and branding for all high precision pressure measurement and calibration solutions. So that's what Mensur does. They're the best of the best of the best when it comes to high precision pressure. And the funny thing is, whenever I talk to that about people, they're like, what is that anywhere? And I'm like, well, we're kind of everywhere. So anywhere that deals with pressure, you'd be amazed, pharmaceutical, aerospace, automotive, industrial, manufacturing, it's everywhere, anywhere that there's pressure. So we're kind of a big deal, but I have over 25 years of B2B and B2C marketing, and I've successfully developed campaigns that boost leads, awareness, and sales. So my expertise spans marketing communications, video production, trade show management, and comprehensive campaign management. Um, Through my marketing tenure, I've been honored with 10 marketing awards, including the Stay Perfect Mentor's Calibration campaign that won 3 awards this year alone. And I work closely with the parent company WICA's global teams to ensure brand consistency across all regions.
Very cool. Congratulations on those
Thank you.
awards. And yes, you are definitely a big deal. So thank you for agreeing to come talk to me on my podcast. Very cool.
I said Mentor are the big deal. I mean, I'm so sorry.
I mean, you're Mensor, right? If you're if you're directing marketing, then I think it's you. That's the big deal. That's how it works, I believe. Yeah. She has a podcast. She's legit.
That's right.
It counts. I love it. Uh, great. Well, really excited to jump in, and hopefully later we can chat a little bit about B2B and B2C marketing since you have experience in both. Some of my favorite things to talk about personally. But I'll start with the question I always start with, which is, Aaron, what is one of your all-time favorite ads or ad campaigns?
That was a tough one for me when you asked me that question, because I always gravitate to this creative or this imaginative side when it comes to ads. And uh, the one that I submitted was with In a Nutshell, or Kurt's YouTube channel. And what they had was this, they answer scientific questions basically, and they do this really, really fun way of presenting them. And the topic that I would speak about today is called Are We Alone in the Universe? And at first it kind of seems like, well, where's she going with this one? And I think the reason that I like it so much is it's purely a personality thing, because I'm very curious. I color outside the lines all the time when it comes to marketing. I'm very much this maverick type personality. In fact, if I took the predictive index personality and business profile, and that's what it identified me as, so I was just like, man, this totally makes sense. And so this particular video, Are We Alone in the Universe? It really starts out very small, saying this is where we are, as an individual. And then it just takes this exploded view of how we fit into this larger picture. And when it comes to marketing, it struck a nerve with me. I was just like, oh my God, that's exactly how I approach campaigns. I look at these little individual strategic points, but they're all encompassing in the larger picture. And so this video struck me just on so many different levels. And it's the reason that I love it so much.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I like that a lot, and I'm not a very analytical person, but I can
What?
appreciate that that it all, I mean, it, especially in marketing, like everything comes back to like these tiny little data points that might be deemed insignificant, but it's really what makes it all matter and makes it all relevant, right, to
Right.
whatever your audience is. So that's pretty cool. And it also gives me a good perspective on like, okay, we're doing marketing, but like the universe is so much bigger than
That's
than us. And even the people we're marketing to. Like we're all important, but
you
in
know.
the grand scheme of things, like there's so much more to life.
So I had a, colleague that interviewed me for a podcast, and his comment towards the end is that, we're in this marketing game, and it is a game. It's a serious game, but to put it in perspective on where things are at, he framed it that way. And so, to your point, I totally agree. There's this larger context that you can't ignore.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it can be so many things, whether it's
Eh,
just current events, political, like all of the
Don't
things
go
that we
there.
have to consider. We won't talk about it, but all the things you have to consider when you're a marketer, right? And when you're putting together campaigns, and then especially when you're planning ahead, like we're doing a lot of planning ahead for 2025 right now, and we're like, okay, these are the ideas, like this is our plan, this is kind of like our content strategy, but you never know how it could shift as things unfold and the world changes and AI changes and things happen, good and bad in the universe. So, yeah, interesting perspective, not to get too dark on a Friday, but
Right. Just take it back a little bit.
yeah, totally. Well, on that note, what about one of your favorite brands as far as if you could join the marketing team there and brainstorm and help them grow, what brand would you choose to work for?
That's another one that I struggled with. And I feel like I'm going to give you this non-committal answer, but I have to frame it in proper context because if you look at my resume, if like you go keep my LinkedIn, you'll notice these industries that I've been successful in through the tenure of my marketing career. And, you know, I was the webmaster and marketing personnel for the board of directors and the board of education for Oklahoma Public City Schools. I've worked for a large electronics accessories distribution company and built up their marketing department. I've also done work with American Precious Metals Exchange, which is a financials commodities company. And then I've got the smattering of B2B industrial manufacturing with completely different, industries or products.
Yeah.
And what I've always gravitated to when I selected these positions or they came to me is the challenge. The challenge is what always sparked my interest. It wasn't a particular industry. It wasn't a particular product. It wasn't a company. I looked at the challenge that they were facing and I thought, I bet I could fix that.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to me, like if a green drop were to land in my lap, I wouldn't even know who it would be, because you would have to provide that challenge. Um, Caleb Clark with Hook plus Ladder, he actually identified it in me the best. And so I'm just going to give him that free shout out because I don't want to steal his word and say they're mine. That'd be too typical marketing of me. But when I told him that story, he said, well, it sounds like your special power is you like to run into the fire. You see the challenge and you can visualize what needs to be done and you just go. And so that that's the best explanation of why I can't answer that question with a finite, company. Because I know that all companies they have these struggles and they have these challenges, generate growth, demand generation, top to bottom, excuse me, um, sales funnel. They all have this stuff, and whether they can't get their branding in line or they're just having this product management slash marketing research problem, we all have them. And so on this Venn diagram of challenges, there's one thing right there in the middle, and it's all those little things that they all share. And so whenever I think of, a favorite company or favorite job, it's the one that provides me a challenge.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's quite a good answer, even though you didn't technically answer the question because
You're like,
it's
I
what you're
guess I'll let
passionate
that
about. Yeah.
go.
Well, let it slide just this once because
Thank you. Yeah. I don't
it's
want you like be
it's
like, well, I'll
fair.
never invite him again.
Yeah. And cross him off the podcast guest list. But no, that's cool. It sounds like you're definitely passionate about that and obviously good at it too. And I think that's, I mean, admirable. Like it's marketing's not easy. And
No.
when we come into something that is, I mean, I think B2B marketing in general has its own challenges. And then when you're coming into some kind of complicated situation, there's a lot there. Like there's probably a lot to unpack. What are kind of some of the first steps? Like imagine you were going to some new company or even when you've started at one of your previous roles. Where did you start? Like what are some of your first steps when you come in?
Well, you have to learn, obviously the product and services. That's like the no brainer. Um, you have to do kind of like a ruthless SWOT analysis on the company and the product and services that they offer. And then you need to do that against their competition. You need to know who's out there in the landscape. Understanding the customer and then defining very narrowly the solution that you provide that customer. You got to get that out of the way quickly because that's what's going to dictate the strategy. And then you just have to have transparency and, executive level buy-in. You need to go to them and be able to say, hey, this is what I've identified. Give me that feedback loop. Am I on the right track? Am I on the wrong track? Or you just want to tell me exactly what you want, and then I'll present to you the campaign or strategy to get there.
Right.
Every situation is different. You may run into a situation where, I have where the problem wasn't the marketing department just being awesome. It was that they were in two different positions. There was the marketing arm, which was in New York City, and then there was the home office, which was in Oklahoma City. And so I came in and I was the liaison between the two, uh, the two locations. And that was fun in the sense that I got to go to New York City and stay there, for a percentage of the month, but then I had to go back. And the challenge there wasn't the cool things that we were doing. The challenge was all soft skills because I walked in there and they thought immediately I was the enemy. Like
Uh-huh.
this guy's coming in from headquarters and we're not going to like him. I don't care how nice he is. And so you had to flex a completely different muscle from a marketing standpoint or from a leadership standpoint.
Right.
You have to be transparent. You have to communicate. And when you run into situations that isn't about the products or services, you have to be prepared for those. The whole dynamic of just working in groups is amazing, but it's fun. And communication is just so very important. In fact, one of my favorite quotes, and I don't know who said it. I need to research that. I'm just been lazy, but one of my favorite quotes is the biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it has occurred. And I think that is so true whenever you get with different teams, even in marketing, really. It's bad if you can't communicate in marketing, but it usually occurs when it happens with siloed different departments because they got different challenges, they have different problems, and they have different nomenclature. And so I could be saying something to you and you could be nodding your head, but then walking away thinking, I don't know what the hell just happened.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you just have to be able to have those honest dialogues. And I think that's the important aspect.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I love that quote. I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna clip that part out
Yeah,
of the
go for
episode.
it. Go
You'll
for
see
it.
it.
Please do.
You'll see it. That's really cool. Um, awesome. Yeah, I bet that is quite challenging working with like two different teams and probably also being the new person that's coming in. Like
Oh, yeah. It
I've
was
worked
so
with a
fun.
lot of clients where they're always scared. They're always scared. They're like, "Oh, we have a new person coming in," and it always ends up being okay, but they're never like ready for it to be okay. They're ready to like go to war with whoever that person is.
Well, absolutely. And, whenever you come in and you're suggesting new systems or processes, you just have to slay that dragon right away, like get rid of it. Like, this is not how we're going to do it anymore. And that's exhilarating, but it's also just, to your point, people are just terrified. They're like, oh my God, like, can't learn something new again. Um, but if you build trust, I mean, it goes back to the infinite gaming. You build trust in the teams, you display flexibility to make extreme shifts, and then you have courage to adopt that mindset, and they'll see that in you. And I think that's just so valuable because they'll see what you bring to the table. And don't get me wrong, there's a finite amount of time that you have to implement those changes because, and I'm going to throw another quote at you. There's a quote that says, you can never be a wise man in your home country, meaning if you've been somewhere for so long, then these new ideas are just kind of like, I don't know, no one cares about that. But when you're someone
Yeah,
new coming into the system, they're like, oh, they're a prophet. They're a wise person. They know exactly what we need to do differently. Um,
right.
and so there's a challenge there also.
Yeah, for sure. I could see that. Yeah, we actually at my agency hired a new person this week. She just started and she's awesome. We can tell like she's gonna have a positive impact on our processes and just the way we run our paid media, all of those things. And then it's very exciting but it's kind of exactly what you described, right? Like she's like, oh, she's got a new idea. Not that none of us have good ideas already, but she's got like
Yeah,
new ideas that we haven't heard yet. So
yeah.
we're
So
like
like,
eating it up right now. Yeah,
that's awesome.
it's fun. It's super fun. Yeah. Um, cool. I had another question for you. What was it? Oh, I think it was about when in your various experiences or even now, when you're talking, do you ever, I guess the first question is, do you ever work for a company or have you ever worked for a company where they do both direct to consumer and business to business marketing? And what has been your experience with that?
I have. I worked for a sporting goods company that, by and large, I think it was like 73% was direct to consumer, but then they also had this wholesale business. Actually, that I might have that backwards. It was 70% B2B, and then the other 30 some odd percent was B2C. Excuse me. And the messaging is completely different because whenever you're working with a B2B, obviously they have this revenue growth that they're trying to achieve. And the pricing is completely different. The things that will be exciting to them are completely different. But on the same, token, especially with sporting goods, is that you have to be able to identify what's resonating with the consumer because then you have to relay that marketing data back to your B2B clients. So you're kind of scratching both backs at the same time while trying to maintain your own, revenue growth. And so it's
Right.
challenging. You know, People think of marketing as just this execution, like I need a website or I need a tweet or I need something, a graphic that's going to go up there. And that's not
Yeah.
marketing at all.
Yeah.
There's this whole innovation that's fed through research, through soft skills, through, learning not only about your processes and products and services, but, getting a full accounting for the landscape before you even sit down to Photoshop or Illustrator, InDesign, whatever. Um, and I think people are a little confused about that sometimes because it's like, I would love to be able to sell Nike shoes all day long because that's an easy sell. I'm not just sitting around with these shoes thinking, what am I going to do with all these? People want them.
Yeah.
And so it's up to marketing to kind of fit this role of identifying the need that you can fulfill with your product or service. And that takes research. It's not, I'm going to throw a website out there and everybody's going to come. Those days are over.
Yes. They are over and they are quickly moving into history. Like the more AI
Yeah,
unfolds,
exactly.
especially with like landing pages and whatnot,
But yeah,
it's going to be so interesting to see how that changes over the next year.
yeah. And AI, I mean, because you brought it up, because AI is just such a fascinating thing. And I had recently completed a certification with IBM on their AI platforms. And it just, I'd been dabbling in it for the last 2 years, but then when I took this certification, I was just like, it opened up my mind. And I encourage any marketeer to just dive into it as deep as you can go. Um, because like I said earlier, marketing is not merely a factory for turning out deliverables. It's an engine of innovation. It's the compass of research. And, we're literally the architect of purpose-driven solutions. And the cool thing about AI is, this is just going to be a podcast of quotes. One of
I'm
my
here
favorite
for it.
quotes, yeah, okay, good. One of my favorite quotes that I kind of live by is find out what it is that you want and then learn how to ask for it. And when it comes to AI, it's this invaluable ally in your marketing quest for innovation and problem solving because it's a powerful tool in translating research. It can scrape data and make it very time efficient, which in turn can build a business case for you so you can mold it into this actionable, value driven strategy. You just need to learn how to ask.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
all right, I'll get off
exactly.
my soapbox.
Prompting. No, no, it's a good one. Prompting is incredibly important in the world of AI, and I definitely resonate with what you said too about just marketing not being like a deliverable, especially being someone that's worked on the agency side of things my whole
Oh, yeah.
marketing career. Like potential clients will come to us, everyone has a marketing problem that they're looking to solve, right? And it's like, okay, and how quickly can you get started? And we're like, well, I mean, we can have an ad launch for you in 2 weeks, but like where are we trying to go with this? Like, A,
Yeah.
what is
That
the
breaks a
goal?
little
Like,
here.
you can, yeah, and what does your website look like? And what does your sales process look like? And what's currently converting? And where are those people living? Like, there's so many pieces that are so important to dive into before you're just like, okay, here's the invoice, here's the deliverable. Like, now we're running ads, but there's so much more to unpack there. So it's always fun going through that project process, like educating clients on what not only what we do and how we can help them, but also like how we can really best partner with them to get the results that they want, because it's not always via the means that they expect.
I totally agree. And I think that you cued off on something so very important. That's the education aspect of it, is that sometimes in the agency life, which my first foray into marketing was with a video production advertising agency. So I've lived that life. And I mean, I'll go back, but it's like, it's rough. It can be rough.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely correct that there's an education component to it when a client walks in, because sometimes they're their own worst enemy. And when you're embedded in a larger company or, even mid to small, all the way up to large, they have that same problem where there's this lack of education or understanding of what the marketing function is. And I always try to turn those into teachable moments, or at least kind of, just say, hey, let me help you out. Let me learn what it is that you do in your department, because we're all interconnected here. But at the same time, I'm going to tell you, you know, what we do here in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in my role, I'm on the sales side of the marketing agency. And if I'm just selling and I'm not consulting, then I'm not doing my job properly.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. You're probably fearless then in sales. That's a rough gig. I don't care what anybody says.
It can be, but it's so fun, and it like can be so rewarding when you get the client there to where they're ready to work with you, and then you go through that whole process of just like bringing them up to speed and giving them what they want, but also what they need. And I used to teach elementary school, so I'm very,
Oh, wow.
I guess, good at explaining things that people might not yet know in terms that they can understand.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, yeah. So you're on the elementary side, and then I've been on the board of education or the administration side. And
Yeah.
I hope I'm not offending anyone, including you, when I say that is a strange situation. The education industry. It's I felt like I was in a Stephen King novel, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna be one of those characters that makes it out alive.
At one point, I was sure that I wasn't, which is why I left. But
You're like, I'm
I
not
feel
giving
you.
off main character energy here.
Oh man, it was a lot. Yeah, education is curious about your experience with marketing in that realm because it is
But
such
yeah,
an interesting. I have a lot of opinions. I could get on a soapbox about the education system for hours,
well, I was about
but
to
I won't
say
do that
you
today.
were yeah, you were an elementary school teacher and in sales, which I could never do because I don't know if I can. My fragile ego could handle that type of rejection the sales does. So you're made of sterner stuff, Miss Bryant.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, but I appreciate it. So, next, let's talk about how you measure success in your marketing campaigns and efforts, and maybe some of the metrics that you value the most. I'm sure they vary depending on what you're doing, but
Sure, sure, sure. So for any company that I approach or any project that I approach, it's got to be data driven. And the reason that is because when you have some data backing up what you want to do, whether it's identifying the problem or on the flip side, identifying the solution, it's easier to get buy-in from the C-suite or from the client when you're showing them the reason why. It's not a like trust me bro situation, right? It's like, okay, here, this is what I've identified through the research. These are the objectives that you want to go through strategically. Here's what you're trying to do, whether it's awareness, whether it's branding, whether it's conversion, whether it's evangelism. And each one of those has like this column that goes across and you identifies what it is that you're going to be measuring for that success through the metrics and KPIs, what it is that's going to define success for those, whether it's a benchmark or a number. And then it also kind of gives a definition of what it is exactly that we're talking about in general. So let's say, for instance, you have an awareness campaign. Well, you're not going to track the ROI on an awareness campaign. You're going to track things like clicks and impressions, things of that nature, customer sentiment, share of voice. Those are the things that you're going to look for. Now, when you're looking at conversions, yes, ROI is going to be very important. And so setting up that expectation at the front end is just so very important because then you can go to whether it's your executive team, your client, and say, okay, this is our strategy. Okay, here's the campaign. Here's what we're going to track to gauge the success of it. Here's the KPIs and metrics that are going to be used to follow that track. And then that's what we're going to use to roll all of this up into one cohesive campaign. And to
yeah.
me, that's what it takes. That full understanding. It's almost like the why, what, who, how, questions that journalists ask. It's almost like that because they need all of that to build trust, not only in just your team, but also with, your managing partners. And then on the flip side of that, when you can give that type of overview to your team, it builds trust in you as a leader. They know what they're going to do. The accountability is already injected into it because marketing teams, they have a pretty awesome responsibility. Um, one of the metaphors that I like best about a marketing team or a marketing leader is we're like a lightning rod. We catch a lot of heat, but when we hit, we shine the brightest.
Yeah.
And I think that if you can bring that type of oversight and accountability and transparency to your team and build trust, you're thinking long term already. It goes back to that infinite game idea of building teams that you trust.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's so important. That theme has already come up a few times here with the teams. Yeah, super important. And I forgot what I was gonna say, so I'll just cut this part out.
Beside the challenge of joining a new team or a new company, which I just totally gravitate towards, one of the things that I love about marketing is that it's just amazing. And what I mean by amazing is that, how's the best way to put this? The amazing thing about marketing is, the very definition of it is it's the process of getting people interested in your company's product or service. And for me, I truly believe that takes communication. So when you learn how to train and practice on articulating thought or idea, something abstract, or you're communicating a message, you can then identify the problems. which leads to formulating solutions that can be negotiated not only on your behalf, but more importantly, on behalf of the company that you work for, the clients that you work for, and so forth. And that's just so powerful to me because that resonates with this openness of, that my personality kind of yearns for. And
Yeah.
that's where creativity has kind of led me. I can get creative when I start to kind of look at that larger picture, going back to, are we alone in the universe? Where you're starting
Yeah.
out with all these little points, and then it starts to grow, and just how interconnected everything can be. And
Yeah.
so I really love that about marketing, about how you have these tremendous wins in marketing, and some of them are a little quiet, some of them are a little passive, but they're wins nonetheless. And that's where metrics or KPIs are so important, because they're there. And the beautiful thing about those is that it's not just data that you sit and show the C-suite. Okay. It's not like SWOT analysis. Like, okay, we're good at this. We're bad at this. This is our threats. These are opportunities. It's lunch.
Yeah.
That is not the point of the SWOT. The SWOT generates actionable items, and KPIs and benchmarks and metrics. They do the exact same thing. So I could be running a campaign and I'm reporting all these metrics. And at the end of the week, I'm looking at them, and I'm not just thinking, oh, we're up on, click-through rate 50%. Great. I'm going to just write that down. No, it's telling me something's successful. And then if I
Yeah.
have a red block over here on a metric, it's telling me, hey, danger, something's not working. And so collecting that data or understanding what the story is telling you, it's almost like a cipher. And
Yeah.
that part is so exciting, because once you can start to decipher the story that the numbers are telling you, your team has an objective, and you just start moving on it. And then you start seeing these successes or failures, and failures aren't always bad. Um, but whichever the case may be, you're just doing this marketing magic, and I love that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite campaigns was I was working with an independent sales group, and they were actually selling a, a health, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? A nutritional product.
Okay.
And so they had this outside sales team that, they would kick off this, like a sales, I don't know, sales promotion to encourage the salespeople to, produce as many sales as they can over a period of time. But what they were noticing is that there was a decline in participation. People were just getting burned out, which I totally understood. So they wanted to create a scene for this promotion, and I came up with Conquer the Dream. The dream was to be successful in sales. And when I thought of conquer, I thought of like world conquest.
Yeah.
So what I did over the course of 4 months is I created this board game, a physical board game that was kind of modeled after Stratego and Risk.
Okay.
And I printed out these maps that were sectioned off, 4 for every month. So 16 total. Yeah, math is hard. And I folded that up. I gave them game pieces, and I mailed it to every salesperson.
Oh my
And then
gosh.
every week there was an objective, a conquest objective that they had to satisfy. And when they did that, they could take one of their game pieces and conquer this area on the map, kind of like Risk.
Yeah.
And at the end of this promotion, where we had this large gala, the team that succeeded, or the individual that succeeded to, power out everybody else, we produced this military saber that was engraved with their name. And then I think they got a car too. So, and then of course, lots of money. But it was
So
this
fun.
saber that everybody wanted because it fit
Yeah.
into this whole theme. Participation for that promotion was up 67%, I believe. I'll have to go back and look at it, but it was over 50%. Like, everybody just was like, they were crazy about it. And then the people that showed up to the gala, uh, it was an increase of like 35% year over year. And so we just energized them. And
Yeah.
I was really proud of that, because it was a lot of fun. It was obviously creative. but then it also, it was a win. And I like, who doesn't like wins?
Yeah, yeah. And you got the buy-in, which I mean, that is a win in itself. Like,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah. Cause they'd
Very,
never done anything like that before. I mean, there was a lot of like convincing because I didn't necessarily have numbers to support it. Like I just speeched earlier, but I had, a pretty good idea that let's do something different. Let's take a chance. You know,
yeah,
if you're not making someone mad or taking chances in marketing, you're not doing your job well. And so that's just
yeah, that's
one of my
true.
more favorite marketing campaigns.
That's really fun. I love that. It sounds like you are a very creative marketer, and I imagine you kind of have to be when you're in these like really niche B2B spaces too, because
Yes,
they have,
yes.
I mean, at least historically, like B2B marketing and B2B ads have been very flat, like very boring, very like industrial almost. So how how has that how has you being a creative person like played a role in your career? Has that brought on challenges of its own?
So it goes back to, when I was just very, very, very young. So my trajectory, I started life out as a visual artist. I'm a painter.
Okay.
I draw, I paint, anything visual. That was what I was supposed to do in life. And I actually went to college for that. But I learned in my sophomore summer trimester that I was going to die alone and hungry. Like that was guaranteed. I was like, this is not going to work for me. but but my personality just wasn't going to have it. Okay, daddy likes expensive things, and
Yeah.
so I had to make this pivot. But I couldn't turn off that creative, you know, brain cell that was just firing constantly. And so I started to do my own investigative research on software, on graphic design, on computer aided graphics, on programming, web development, CD-ROM programming, just all that stuff. And I just started to build up this toolkit that after I left college, I got tied in with a video production advertising agency because I had all of these technical skills now. And so I came up on the production side of things.
Okay.
I wasn't always just, I didn't go down your traditional route of marketing executive or marketing leadership. I was production side. And I think that has a tremendous value in two ways. One, creativity of the products and projects that you do. When you can look at things from a completely different lens, you can start to build innovation. And innovation is so important for growth, whether it's product or services or company. The second advantage of coming up on production is that when I'm building teams, I've lived that life. And I've been a programmer, I've been a videographer, I've been a photographer. I've lived the life of a production digital designer and traditional designer. So when I build teams and someone is across from me on the interview table telling me about just how awesome sauce they are, I have a really good BS detector because I've
Yeah.
been there. I've done
Right.
programming. In fact, I continue to do professional development, educational opportunities because I never want to stop growing. I never want to stop learning. And when you stop learning what's new and upcoming in marketing, you're already behind and you're no value to yourself professionally. And you're no value to the company if you're just, using the old stuff. And so that,
Yes.
that spirit as a creative is really fed into some successes that I've, been lucky to experience. And as I transitioned from production to leadership, I just pulled it along with me because then I can fire up my team. I can
Mhm.
provide feedback. I can look at it through those different lenses as well as kind of, keeping them on track. And it's been kind of a fortunate journey.
Yeah. Oh, that's really, really cool. Thank you for sharing that with us.
No problem.
Um, that reminded me of yeah, just yesterday actually. Yesterday in the office, we were chatting about how you said, if you're not, I mean, basically, if you're not ahead, you're behind when you're
Mhm.
in the world of marketing because it changes so rapidly and seems like every day it's a little bit quicker. You lose a
Yeah,
second every day on how
it's
much time you have to learn something.
so true.
Yeah, and we as an agency are working on, like, we want to become thought leaders in the space. We want to have a voice where we're able to share information with people, but we don't want to be sharing. We noticed that there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of people saying a lot of things. It's a lot of the same things. It's a lot of things that people were saying 2 months ago. And so we're trying to figure out, like, how do we become thought leaders where we're actually providing value and we're actually providing some somewhat novel ideas to our audience. We're like, where can we go to get the data? And there's plenty of places you can go to get the information on, what has happened. But we're like, is there a tool that can predict the future? Like, is there is there a tool yet that can we train our chat GPT to tell us what's going to happen tomorrow? Because then we can really be
When you
ahead of the
find it, let
game.
me know, okay? You shoot me
I
that
will.
email, please.
I will let you know. It's a quest that we're on, so we'll see what comes out of it. Yeah.
I totally agree, and I think that when it comes to taking that those data points, like you mentioned just now, um, and with AI, like I had previously stated, that it can collect, because AI isn't going to create anything just whiz wow new. It's just going out there and it's leveraging information that already exists. It's if you prompt it correctly, it's going to gather it up for you, but it takes the human to go through it and create that innovation through creativity.
Yeah.
And, the challenge that you just spoke about, it's a very real thing. Everybody wants to come up with the latest, greatest, marketing, method. But
Hmm.
it's going to take humans to do that. Machine's not going to do that.
Right. Yeah. Totally. It's tricky. And then we're also trying to stay ahead of, like, trends with social media or just content trends and that kind of thing too. And it's the same kind of thing. Like, we're currently seeing a lot of AI generated content out there, which now
Mhm.
that it's so widespread, you can recognize it
Everywhere.
really easily. Yeah, like, it's
Right.
now that we all know it, now we all use it, that we're like, oh, that's what that is. So it's interesting. We just need to be watching the trends really closely because you have to hop in it so fast. Like, if you saw a trend a week ago and you didn't post your video, it's too late.
Have you noticed how AI wants to elevate everything? Everything is elevate this, elevate your platform, elevate your
Yes.
business. And I'm just like, oh, okay. So this is where we're at in life.
It's
It's funny.
interesting. It
Yeah.
is. It is funny. Yeah, it has a lot of favorite terms that it'll utilize, and you're like, oh, okay, I know who wrote that. My assistant. We all have the same
Exactly.
assistant.
Yeah. Copilot, Gemini, whoever.
Yeah. So funny. Well, cool. All right. Looks like we have a little more time. So I'm going to ask you one last question. You can
Sure.
expand upon it if you want to. But what is a common misconception that you think people might have related to marketing?
I think the common misconception, and it's kind of what I went over earlier, is that marketing is a factory of deliverables. You know that it's just this tactic that's out there, and they're ignoring this whole innovation and strategic research portion that really embodies what marketing is. And I used to not give it as much attention when I was coming up on the production side, because on the production side, everything is about that final product. And then when I started to build out my own, career and work on myself professionally, personally, that's when I started to see the larger picture. And luckily for me, my brain is flexible enough to expand in that way to where it could identify and then have a little bit of, inward reflection to say, hey, you probably need to consider this. And yeah, I feel like people just, they get hung up on the end result. Marketing is, oh, I need a website, or, oh, I need a video. And they're not asking all those really big questions. And the big questions is what's going to differentiate their product or service from the rest of the background noise out there. And,
Totally.
it just goes back to that education.
Yeah. Yeah. It does all come back to that. I don't know if you can hear it, but my dog is dreaming over here and she's making these little squeaking noises.
It's
Very
dreaming
cute.
about marketing.
So sorry about that. She's just dreaming
No
about
worries.
data points.
That's right. My KPIs are all wrong.
It's very stressful for her. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Um, well, cool. Thank you so much. I think that this was one of my favorite episodes. Very
Oh,
valuable. A lot of valuable information that you shared with us all today. So I super appreciate your time, and we'll have to do it again and have you back
absolutely.
for new topics because I would love to continue picking your brain about all things marketing. But yeah, I
Yeah,
will.
last time that we
Mhm.
talked in June, I was rolling out this idea of kind of like a choose your own adventure video platform for B2B. And so we have to talk about
Yeah.
that sometime.
Yeah,
So,
let's do that for sure. That sounds very fun. I love a choose your own adventure. Um,
well, everybody likes to game things up. And I think gamification is still very relevant today. And when you can fit it into the B2B space, man, you're instantly setting yourself apart.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, going back to that whole idea that B2B advertising is boring. Like it is fun to be able to bring something. It's fun and it's still, at least right now, somewhat easy to bring something like fresh to the table for B2B marketing because it's not all that exciting. If anyone's ever been in the market for like a software as a service product, the ads the ads
See, I
are
would,
not the most
as
exciting.
a, as a closing thought, or at least as we're winding down, I would
Yeah.
say that if you're working in B2B marketing and you're not creating something exciting or challenging, then you need to take a step back because you're missing it. It's there. It is so there. And it may be that final piece to the puzzle that's just going to create this innovation within your own campaign or strategy or initiatives. It is so there, and it may be so hidden in plain sight that you're missing it. And that's why, as a marketeer, AI will analyze, refine, and suggest, right? But it takes the human. It takes us. We're not going to be out of a job, everybody. Just relax. But it takes that human marketeer to look at the landscape, to look at the data points, and find it. And when you do, it's almost like when Neo, in the Matrix, when he saw the code for what it was, your eye just opened up. It's almost like that, and it's just as gratifying.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's cool. Um, Awesome. Well, I will drop your LinkedIn and Instagram in the show notes so people can find you and connect with you. I'll tag you on LinkedIn when I post it there. So yeah, again, thank you, and thank you for all the quotes and for the closing thoughts.
Right. Oh,
Great
um,
conversation.
George Bernard Shaw is the one that did the quote about the problem with communication is the illusion that it has occurred. George Bernard.
Okay, nice, nice. It came
Yeah,
to
but
you.
this is just how my brain works. Okay.
Just in time. I love it. I love that because I can't remember a quote to save my life. Like
It's
if
just,
it's an icebreaker, like what's one of your favorite quotes? I'm like, I've never
yeah.
I've never heard a quote. I don't.
You're like, let me look one up real quick.
My favorite quote is yeah, it's rough. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Erin, for joining our
Not a
chat
problem.
today at the
Yeah,
marketing
yeah.
chat room. And talk to you all later.
Thank you so
Bye.
much for having me.
Thank you.